Alright, let's say you want to download some social determinants of health data, SDOH data, that is not poverty from census. So you can go back into your script that you have here that we used earlier in the semester, and we're going to skip this first part where we're calling in stored data, because all you need to do is download data from census tract. So remember, if you click down here, you can see the names of the different chunks, and we can skip down to the one that we want. If you did this activity in class, you already saved your API key on your computer. You don't need to do that. So we're going to go here to chunk 11 where it says poverty VARs. VARs is short for variables. And I'm going to click on right behind this line here that's going to have me loading the variables that are available for 2021 in the American Community Survey 5-year estimates, and I'm just going to press Control Enter to run that bit of code. Now it's going to go back and run all the things prior that it has to run, like loading packages. And then I have if I click in on this VARs object in my environment, it will pop this open and I can see all the different variables that I could get. So we chose poverty, but maybe you're interested in something else. So let's see, what else might we be interested in? Maybe we're interested in insurance. Okay. So there's a whole lot of variables related to insurance, so you kind of have to go through these and see, which one am I interested in? A lot of them have to do with other things too, like poverty. But this is closer to what I want, just like a general health insurance, but I don't care about age. This is getting into employment. Let's see what we want here. It can be a lot, whether they're in school or not. Okay, here we go. Let's just do 19 to 64 years old with no health insurance coverage. Okay? And how I would select that, and remember I'm going to create a percentage. So I need all of the 19 to 64 year olds, how many people in the census, I'm going to do by census tract, how many people in the census tract fall into that age category, and then, so that'll be my denominator, and then my numerator is going to be the people in that age group who do not have health insurance. So I'm going to need to grab both of those variables. So I'm literally just going to highlight that, and at least on a Mac, Control C to copy that code. And this is, remember, my population variable. So I'll come back over here, and I have in here this pop for poverty. I'm going to replace this, and I'm going to say that it's the pop for insurance. I'm just doing INS. And then over here, go back, remember which one I wanted. I wanted no health insurance coverage for that same age group. Copy that code, Control C, come in here, and I'm going to do Control V. Control V, and instead of below POV, this variable is no insurance. Okay, so now I can go ahead and run this whole chunk. It'll run this part again, but I don't care. And it's going to designate the variable names, the variable codes, and then this piece of code here is putting the names, names and var codes together as the name and the short description. And then it's going to join the longer description from this variables object that we have here. So then I'll have a nice little code book and I can double check that I'm grabbing the variables I want, because sometimes cutting and pasting these codes can get a little dicey. So we want to double check, make sure we have the things we expected. So I go ahead and run that, and then it'll tell me, okay, yeah, I have something called no insurance, and it is the total people ages 19 to 64 years old who have no health insurance, and then I have the population for that variable, and that is just all the 19 to 64-year-olds. So the next thing I can do is grab that data, and then I'm going to create a percentage. So here I'm calling this Philly POV. I'm going to call it Philly Insurance, and this object items is the thing we made up here, that if I just highlight and run this by doing Control Enter, those are the variables. This is what it's reading right here. So it's saying, I'm going to grab those things in the state of Pennsylvania for the county of Philadelphia in the year of 2021, and now we don't want to call in the shapefile of the census tracts yet, because we're going to do some math with it, and then we'll add those in later. So this is actually fine. You don't need to change anything. I just changed the name because I'm no longer calling poverty. You honestly don't have to, but you have to keep track of what you're calling it. So we're going to go ahead and run this, and then we can look in here and see what we grabbed. So now you see I have these two variables, 2 records for each census tract, and values in each. And it looks like I have a lot of zeros in here, and those are people, that's census tracts where nobody has no insurance in that age group, and that's information that's valuable as well. Okay, so now see how I have Philly Poverty here, and remember that this used to be called Philly Poverty, but I changed the name of it. So now I have to change the name to match what I had before. So it's going to say, or what I have now, so Philly Ints for insurance. And we're going to change this to, just to make it consistent. But I actually don't need to change these, because what it's doing is it's saying, all right, you're going to use, you're going to keep one record for every GeoID and name. And remember, if we look up here, we have GeoID and name, and we do want one record for every census tract. That's what those mean. And then we're going to take the values from, the names from the column called variable. So here's variable, and we're going to make a new column with that name. And there's only 2 different values in here. So I'm going to make a column that says pop ints and another one that says no ints. And then here we're going to use the values from the column that's currently called estimate. So here, estimate, that's the number of people in that census tract in the age group, and this is the number of people in that census in the age group who also don't have insurance. So we're just making this go from a long format to a wide format, and press run, and we'll check it. Look at that. It did what I said. Cool. Alright, next we're going to calculate our percentage. So again, we're going to replace, now this is starting to get a little annoying because I have to replace poverty with ints in 2 places. So, and actually 3 places right here as well. So what I could do is press Control F. That's going to bring this up here. I'm going to write poverty, and I'm going to replace it with ints, and I'm going to highlight this section because I don't want to do it everywhere. I don't remember everywhere that I have it in my code, and I don't want to mess up all my code. But if I highlight that and press in selection, then it's just going to replace everywhere that I say poverty with ints in this selected area. So I'm going to replace all, and it should be 3. That's good. Press OK. And we still have to make other changes because remember we have names now that aren't pop pov and below pov. Instead, we have these names up here, no ints and pop ints. And we don't want the percent pov. We want we're not making a variable that's the percentage of people who are in poverty. We're making a variable that is the percentage of people who don't have insurance. So we're going to do percent no ints is the new variable we're making. And remember, our numerator is no ints, and our denominator is pop ints. And then again, we're going to change it, no ints, again I could use the find and replace for this. So now I'm saying, so first, in this first step, I just created this variable by dividing no ints by pop ints. Now I'm mutating it, I'm changing it, that same variable again. Here's the variable again, I'm going to change, and I'm just rounding it to 2 decimal points, and I'm multiplying it by 100. So we're making it a nice percentage. And I can also create a quartile, no ints, but here it says QR, so now I'm designating a new variable, no ints, and here, no ints. Okay, so this should run. This part might throw an error because I don't know if I have that package loaded, so if it does, we'll go up and run that again. Here we go. It's saying that percent no ints is not found. Let's see why not. Now, if I highlight this, oh, here we go. I made a mistake somewhere. This, so if I highlight something, it should highlight everywhere that it exists in my view. Okay, so right now I'm highlighting this, and these two are not highlighted, so they're different. So I'm just going to press copy, and those two are the same. Oh, I have INC instead of INS. Okay, so it's a typo. Alright, let me run this again. Now it's saying it's not working because it doesn't know how to do this create breaks. Oh, it's actually saying that the breaks are not unique. Let's go look at what I can do is do shift and # to make it to comment this part out. Run that again. The top part will run without this part that was giving me an error. Okay, and let's just look at it. If it's saying the breaks are not unique, maybe I don't have enough different types of percentages, because I bet the percentage of people who don't have insurance is pretty small throughout Philadelphia. So maybe it won't do the quantiles because of that. So let's see. Philly ints percent, and wow. Okay, so I do have some variation here, but a lot of places I have a lot of NAs, and I have a lot of 0%. And if I wanted to see real quick what this variable distribution looks like, I can make a little histogram of it by writing hist, and there is some variation here definitely, but there's a lot in that lowest category. So that might be why it's giving me trouble. I'm not going to show this now, but there's a couple things I could do. I could go back and pick a different variable. Maybe instead of no insurance, I want public insurance. I could just leave it how it is, or I could assign a different way to make these groups. But depending on what you're picking in terms of your variable, you might just be fine. Right now we have this numeric variable, and actually that might be fine for what you're doing. So get in touch with me if you need this part to work and it's not, and you can't figure it out on your own. But right now I'm going to move on with our lives for the sake of simplicity. So the next thing we're going to do, remember this is not a shapefile, so I'm just going to get these Philly tracks back. And here I have geometry equals true, and that means I am getting the shapes of the census tracts. So we can just run this how it is, and it downloads it for us. And we'll double check that we have a shape here by plotting it. Yep, that's the shape we want. And then we're going to join them together with that variable, that the data that we have just downloaded. So instead of Philly poverty, we have percent, we have Philly ints, and it's again not poverty, it's ints. And we'll run that. Okay. And lastly, what you need to do is write it out as a shapefile. And I didn't give this code to you in this original thing, so I'm going to give it to you now, and I'll post it on Canvas. The way that we do that is we're going to load a library called SF. And if you haven't, did I have you load that at the beginning? Let's see, let's name this chunk so we can get back to it. Join percent to shape and save. Okay. Let's go back up to the top and see in the setup if I had you. Yes, I did have you load the library SF. So you should be good on that. Now we can go back to chunk 17. So actually I shouldn't have to run this, but that's the library we're going to use, and we're going to do write SF, and the object that we're going to write out, which means like save it out, is Philly ints geo, and then in quotes you're going to give it the path to where you want to save it to and what you want to save it as. So I'm gonna save mine in, I'm just gonna save it in this working directory I have right here. In order to see where you currently are, you can write get wd with open and close parentheses, and if you run that, it tells you where it would save to if you just give it a name. I'm fine with it saving to this location. If you weren't, you could give it a file path here, and I'm just gonna give it a name and say Philly no ints .shp. You have to write .shp to get it to save out as a shapefile, so you can read it into QGIS. And I'll go ahead and press run, and then I see that it is in here in my directory that I'm currently in, and it has 4 files, which you need, right? You need all 4 of these files in order to get things to be able to be called as a shapefile. And yeah, okay. That is how you can modify this code to get different social determinants of health data that you're interested in.